Hey everyone, this is Exploring Fiction, and welcome back to another video. So guys, a while back on the channel, I did a review of Mistborn by Brandon Sanderson, and it was my first time reading both Brandon Sanderson as an author and the Mistborn novel. So, this video is actually kind of a follow-up to that because I just read Mistborn's sequel, The Well of Ascension. So guys, there will be spoilers ahead for The Well of Ascension by Brandon Sanderson, so if you haven't read it, just be warned. But anyway, let's get right into it. The first Mistborn novel was a great, fresh twist on the fantasy genre, and right off the bat, I liked the premise of its sequel. While Mistborn felt like a complete story that only left threads for future installments without guaranteeing them, I liked how this story's basis is what would happen after an evil empire is taken down, and how would the good guys hold on to it or maintain control and stability. So, yeah, the whole premise of this novel really put it in a good light for me right off the bat. As usual, Vin is a great protagonist to follow, someone who's committed to doing the right thing despite her troubled past that's left her really scarred. The crew is just as fun as before, and this time around, Breeze and Clubs felt like they stood out more than in the first book. Breeze was explored more in depth, and Clubs opened up more for us as readers. Again, Sazed was my favorite character. Man, that guy's been through a lot, and you feel it, especially at the conclusion of this book. I mean, you hate to see what's happened to him at the end of this book. You know, he's pretty much lost all hope and faith, which is really ironic for someone who's supposed to be teaching the people of the world about different religions. And, you know, it's a combination of the death of his lover, Tyndwyl, and him being a teacher of religions that really makes his downfall even worse because he knows all of them in and out, so he doesn't know what to believe or if he can even believe. And so I really loved Sazed in the first one. He was like that great, strong mentor character who you didn't know was really strong behind his, feeble outward image. And in this one, I felt like they furthered his character really well. I really hope he's not redeemed, but he finds peace in the final installment of the trilogy. Otherwise, I'm going to be really sad about what happens to him. So, hopefully it's for the best, but, his character took a dark turn, but he's still my favorite. In the first book, Marsh had my favorite character arc, that being Kelsier's brother Marsh, who became a Steel Inquisitor, basically sacrificed his entire life for the good of their plan. Like, he didn't die. Sacrifice his life isn't die. But he sacrificed his life, as in he had to give up everything to become this twisted evil being just to infiltrate the Lord Ruler's closest advisors. And so that arc was great to me. Like, he gave up everything for the good of everyone else. And though he didn't show up much in this book, when he did, it was very impactful. For me, in The Well of Ascension, Elend had the best arc, and became one of my favorite characters. His commitment to the people and his will to stay noble really shined, even after they ousted him as king. Orisur, I hope I'm saying that right, the Kandra, and Vin's relationship was another high point. Though it's later revealed it was a lie the whole time, but even after she learns the Kandra belonged to Zane, it still felt as though it and she still had a connection. As mentioned before, the politics and warfare of the book made it really captivating, what with the multiple armies and the siege. So that was a big high point. That tied into the whole keeping an empire, or a fallen empire, as stable as you can. The character of Tyndwyl grew on me as the story went on, so much so that I was very sad and surprised at her death at the end. That being said, for me, one of the weaker points of the story was the relationship between her and Sazed. His descent into despair after her death made sense, and I really hope he recovers in the next book, but I just wasn't convinced enough of their romance. Sure, it was there, but I didn't feel like I spent enough time getting to watch it grow. The Kolos were a cool new antagonistic force, but they seemed kinda out of nowhere. This is a bit of a nitpick, I guess, but I think it would have been better if they had at least been mentioned, even in a throwaway line in the first book. It just kind of seemed like they were created for this novel, which obviously they were, but it shouldn't really feel like that when you're reading. It should feel like they're a part of the world and they just showed up. It felt like they were created specifically for this, when even if it was just kind of a one-off line in the original Mistborn about them, I would have been satisfied. And maybe there was, maybe it's been a while since I read that first one, so maybe it is there and I just don't remember. So let me know if that's the case. All the battle and the deaths of some of the crew, Clubs and Doxson, really hit hard. Especially Doxson, as it felt like he never really got what he deserved. He always felt like he was the one doing Kelsier and Vin and Elend's, paperwork and busy work, and he died doing the exact same thing, even though after Elend wasn't king anymore, he kind of took the lead in the crew, but still, it never really felt like he got justice, and so his death felt like it cut his character arc short, which is a really effective way of writing. It just was really sad. Vin and Elend's relationship grew to my liking, and I felt their marriage was great and made sense in the context of the story. However, one negative I have with their romance is that many times it seemed like their problems with each other stemmed from a lack of communication, which annoyed me. Both felt like they were unworthy for each other, and I feel like if they were to talk this out and realize it about each other and grow in their love that way, it would have made more sense than the way it ended up resolving. Whereas they both separately talked to Sazed and he gave them both advice, and they just kind of solved their problems, by learning to trust each other because of Sazed's advice. But I feel like it would have been a much more efficient and effective arc or plot line of their romance if they had kind of talked it out, because then we would have felt some tension, because it was described, especially from Vin's point of view in the story, that there was a, tension growing as we kind of got near the climax of the story as far as their romance went. Like, she was almost developing a love triangle with Zane as well, Elend's brother. But I never really felt it as much as I just read it. So I feel as though if Elend and Vin would have talked or maybe had an argument or a fight over them feeling unworthy for each other, it would have made for a much better resolution to their romantic issues. So that's one big negative I had. The finale and twist, with the being in the Well of Ascension being released, having tricked everyone, was shocking and great, and I can't wait to see how the whole problem is solved at the end of the trilogy. I got chills when I read the final sentence written by Quan about not letting Alendi get to the well so that he wouldn't release what was contained within, because, that was the first time that line was revealed. It was thought the whole time that Alendi shouldn't get to the well because he would misuse the power in it, when really the power is the evil. So that was kind of chilling and ominous. And yeah, I can't wait to see how that's resolved. As I said earlier, Marsh had my favorite arc and was one of my favorite characters in the original Mistborn. And I don't know why he tried to kill Sazed for interfering at the end, but I really want to find out. It seems he's lining up to have a tragic end, which is a shame since he had to sacrifice so much, and his suffering was an essential part of Kelsier's plan in the first book. Before I wrap this up, though, I do have one somewhat large complaint, and that is the character of Zane, Straff's Mistborn, and Elend's brother, and the way he affected Vin. I get Zane is supposed to be a character we hate, but he irked me beside that. I did not like that Vin developed a sort of attraction to him, and I felt like she was too willfully blind toward his tendency for evil. Like, almost having a love triangle between Vin Elend and Elend's insane brother Zane felt stupid in my opinion. Also, I was disgusted when Zane lured Vin to help him massacre Lord Set's forces. And I get that's probably how we're supposed to feel, but I felt it just as much as an out-of-story emotion as I did within it, if that makes any sense. The event just felt like too much of an overreach for how Vin would react. It felt like Sanderson was trying to stretch Vin too far into her old self of being, paranoid and wanting, and not even her old self, but that calling to use her power more and assert it over others. I just wasn't convinced that Vin would behave that way, even with the coaxing from Zane. And so I felt that was kind of a misstep, honestly. With all that being said, I still loved this book. It was masterfully written by Sanderson, and not only did I barely have trouble remembering the intricacies of his magic system after some time away from the first book, but I still felt right at home with the characters in the world. In my opinion, the first Mistborn book is still better, but The Well of Ascension is a worthy and masterful sequel that holds its own incredibly well. So guys, what did you think about The Well of Ascension? Have you read it? Let me know if you have below in the comments. I would love to hear your thoughts. Leave a like if you enjoyed. Subscribe if you're new here. I would